Trust in public space is rarely something we think about directly. It operates quietly, shaped by routine and repetition. We trust sidewalks, daylight, and the idea that simply standing somewhere does not make us a suspect. We trust that being present is not the same as being involved. On the morning of January 24th, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, that assumption collapsed. A civilian named Alex Preddy was shot and killed by law enforcement officers during a federal operation he was not the target of. Stay with this story to the end, because what happened here is not only about a single shooting. It is about how presence itself can be redefined as threat, and how quickly a civilian can be transformed into a suspect without ever committing a visible crime. Alex Preddy was 37 years old. On the morning of January 24th, shortly after 9 a.m., federal law enforcement agents were conducting an enforcement operation in a public neighborhood in Minneapolis. The operation took place during daylight hours, near businesses and pedestrian walkways. The area was not sealed off. There were no visible barriers, no police tape, and no clear boundary separating officers from the public. Civilians were present, standing nearby, watching and recording. Alex Preddy was among those civilians. He was not named in a warrant. He was not the subject of the operation. He was not being sought by law enforcement when the encounter began. These facts matter because the foundation of this case is not what Preddy did, but where he was. Publicly available videos show Preddy standing near the enforcement activity. He is holding a phone. His posture is upright. His hands are visible. He is not running. He is not hiding. He is not seen assaulting an officer in the footage available to the public. What we see is observation, not evasion. At one point, footage shows a woman near the scene being pushed by an officer. Preddy moves toward that interaction. This moment is critical. It is the point where interpretation begins to override observation. The footage does not show Preddy striking an officer. It does not show a weapon raised. What it shows is proximity, movement, presence. Seconds later, agents move toward Preddy. He is physically confronted. Chemical spray is deployed. He is taken to the ground as multiple agents converge on him. During the struggle, footage shows an officer removing a firearm from Preddy's waistband and walking away with it. Moments later, multiple gunshots are fired. Alex Preddy is pronounced dead at the scene. There is no publicly available video showing Preddy firing a weapon or pointing a gun at officers before the shots are fired. There is no footage showing a clear warning sequence visible to the viewer. What exists instead is a rapid escalation captured in fragments, angles, and partial views. This is where many narratives stop. A shooting, an investigation, a press statement. But to understand what this case reveals, we have to slow down and examine how Alex Preddy's role changed in real time. Because the most important shift in this story happens before the gunshots. It happens when presence becomes criminalized. Criminalization of presence occurs when a person is treated as dangerous not because of a criminal act, but because their physical presence is interpreted as interference or threat. It is not rooted in action, but in perception. In this case, Preddy's presence near a federal operation becomes the defining factor in how he is understood. There is no visible transition in the footage from civilian to suspect. We do not see a sequence of questioning, detention, or arrest. The progression is compressed. Preddy moves from observer to perceived threat without a clearly documented middle step. That absence is not incidental. It is structural. High-intensity law enforcement operations often create invisible zones of control. Even when a space remains legally public, authority reshapes how that space functions. Civilians inside it are no longer simply present. They are evaluated, interpreted, categorized. In this environment, filming becomes significant. To civilians, a phone represents documentation. To officers, it introduces uncertainty. In moments of stress, uncertainty is often resolved as threat. The same object can carry radically different meanings depending on who holds power.
This looks like a situation where an individual arrived at this scene to inflict maximum damage on individuals and to kill law enforcement.
Language used after the shooting reinforces this transformation. Official descriptions emphasize words like approached, advanced, and threatened. These terms do not describe a crime. They describe interpretation. The vocabulary shifts Preddy from bystander to aggressor after the outcome is already irreversible. This is a pattern seen in cases where presence is criminalized. Instead of establishing danger before force is used, danger is assigned retroactively to justify the force. The logic reverses. He was killed, therefore he must have been dangerous. The broader implication of this case is not about whether individuals followed policy. It is about how policy interacts with perception. When presence alone can trigger lethal suspicion, public space becomes conditional. Observation becomes dangerous. Documentation becomes provocation. Alex Preddy did not need to act violently to be treated as violent. He only needed to be there. This case forces a difficult question. If being present near law enforcement activity can be enough to result in death, what does that mean for public space, accountability, and civilian rights? Who is allowed to watch? Who is allowed to exist without explanation? Understanding this case requires moving beyond footage and into structure. It requires asking how authority defines threat and how quickly that definition can harden into irreversible action. If this analysis helped you see how presence itself can be transformed into suspicion, share it. These conversations shape expectations, and expectations shape systems. If you want more careful, evidence-based storytelling that looks beyond headlines and into how power operates on camera, consider subscribing. Because the right to exist in public should not depend on how authority interprets your presence, and understanding that is the first step toward protecting it.